Two people can earn the same amount of money. One feels trapped, the other feels free. Same city, same income range, same economy. But one of them feels like they cannot make a single wrong move. They can't leave their job. They can't take a break. They can't handle one bad month. They can't really say no to anything important. The other person isn't rich, but they can breathe. They can wait. They can walk away. They can absorb a setback without panic. They can make decisions without immediately asking, "Can I afford the consequences?" That difference is what this video is about, because most people think wealth is about having more money. In real life, wealth feels like something much more specific. It feels like having options. And once you understand that, a lot of modern financial life starts making more sense. Most people imagine wealth visually: a nice house, a luxury car, a large investment account, expensive vacations, no visible limits. But that's not usually how wealth feels from the inside. From the inside, wealth feels like flexibility. It feels like not needing your next paycheck quite so urgently. It feels like not being cornered by every decision. It feels like saying, "I don't have to do this." That sentence is incredibly powerful. I don't have to take this bad job offer. I don't have to stay in this apartment. I don't have to finance this purchase. I don't have to panic because one thing went wrong. That's what money does at its best. It doesn't just buy stuff. It buys room. And room changes everything. Let's make this concrete. Take two people. Call them Rachel and Ben. They both make around $85,000 a year. On paper, they should feel pretty similar, but they don't. Rachel feels like her life is permanently tight. Not disastrous, not chaotic, just locked. Her rent is high. Her car payment is high. Her insurance is high. Her lifestyle has adjusted upward just enough that most of her income already has a destination before it arrives. She isn't frivolous. She just has very little room. If she lost her job, things would get stressful fast. If her landlord raised rent, she'd feel it immediately. If she wanted to take a few months off, change careers, or move cities, the idea would feel almost absurd. Now Ben, same rough income, but lower fixed costs. No car payment, simpler apartment, more cash buffer, more margin between what he earns and what he needs. Ben is not living a glamorous life, but he has options. If work becomes unbearable, he can leave. If a good opportunity appears with short-term risk, he can consider it. If something breaks, it's frustrating, not destabilizing. That's the difference. Not income, optionality. A lot of financial stress has less to do with not having money and more to do with not having choices. That distinction matters because people often think they want more money. What they really want is what more money is supposed to create: relief, flexibility, recovery time, decision-making space. They want the ability to pause without falling behind instantly. They want the ability to change direction without detonating their whole life. That is what wealth feels like at a human level, not numbers, mobility. When people say they want to feel financially secure, they usually don't mean, "I want to buy 10 expensive things." They mean, "I want one mistake to stop feeling fatal." That's optionality. And it's a much more useful way to think about money than status. This is where a lot of people get confused. They assume more income automatically creates more options. Sometimes it does, but not always, because income can increase while obligations increase faster. That's how people become trapped inside impressive-looking lives. A bigger apartment, a newer car, higher recurring costs, more expensive defaults. A life that looks successful, but requires constant income to maintain. That kind of life can feel polished from the outside and incredibly rigid from the inside. You can earn more and still have no room. You can make six figures and still be one interruption away from stress. Because the point is not how much money passes through your life. The point is how much of it remains available to protect your choices. That's why some people with lower incomes feel calmer than people earning much more. Not because money doesn't matter, because structure matters more than people think. A lot of people accidentally trade options for appearances, and the trade often looks reasonable. A nicer car signals progress, a better apartment signals adulthood, a more expensive neighborhood signals success. But many of those choices quietly reduce freedom. They increase the amount of money your life now requires. That's the trap. People think they are buying success, sometimes they are buying dependence. Dependence on the next paycheck, dependence on the current job, dependence on stable markets, stable health, stable timing, stable everything. The life becomes impressive, but fragile, and fragility is the opposite of wealth. Because true wealth is not just the ability to consume more, it is the ability to remain stable when life becomes uncertain. Let's define this clearly. What do options look like in real life? They look like being able to leave a job that is quietly destroying your mental health. They look like being able to say no to an offer that pays more but costs too much of your life. They look like taking a few months to recover, retrain, relocate, or rethink. They look like surviving a bad season without sliding immediately into debt or panic. They look like not having to solve every problem with urgency. That's what people miss. Optionality changes the speed of your decisions. Without options, everything feels urgent. With options, you can think. And being able to think before acting is one of the greatest financial advantages there is. Because rush decisions are expensive. Desperate decisions are expensive. Fear-based decisions are expensive. Options slow you down just enough to choose better. And better choices compound. This is why low obligation is so powerful. It doesn't look exciting, nobody posts about it, no one is impressed by your low monthly burn rate. But low obligation does something that high status lifestyles often can't. It protects movement. A person with low obligations can adapt faster, they can recover faster, they can say no more easily, they can wait longer, they can survive uncertainty with less emotional damage. That is a kind of power many people underestimate. Because modern culture is very good at teaching people to admire visible wealth, it is much worse at teaching people to value invisible freedom. But invisible freedom is often the real thing people are after. Not just more money, more room to move. This is one of the strangest truths in personal finance. A person with a moderate income and low required spending can feel far wealthier than a high earner with constant obligations, because the emotional experience of money is not created only by how much you make. It is created by the relationship between your income and your commitments. If your life requires almost all of your income, you are financially narrow, even if the number is large. If your life requires much less than you earn, you are financially wide, even if the number is smaller. That width is what people experience as calm. That width is what turns money into freedom. So yes, income matters, but income without optionality often feels more like pressure than power. And optionality without status can still feel deeply secure. This changes the whole question. Instead of asking, how do I look more successful? The better question becomes, how do I build more room into my life? More room to wait, more room to recover, more room to choose, more room to survive disruption without instantly becoming desperate. That might mean lower fixed costs. It might mean a larger cash buffer. It might mean resisting lifestyle upgrades that quietly reduce mobility. It might mean caring less about visible success and more about the ability to remain flexible. That's not always glamorous, but it is effective. Because a life with options can bend without breaking. And that's what most people are actually looking for. Not just wealth, freedom from being cornered. So yes, money matters, but not just because it buys things. It matters because it buys choices. And choices are what make life feel safe. That's why having options is the real definition of wealth. Not a bigger house, not a more expensive car, not the appearance of success, but the ability to say, I can wait, I can leave, I can recover, I can choose. A lot of people don't want wealth because they want more stuff. They want wealth because they want more freedom to move through life without fear. And that is a much smarter thing to build toward. If this changed the way you think about money, subscribe. Because the most important financial advantages are often the ones that don't look impressive from the outside.